Okay, great. Hey, everybody. Andrew Tisser here. For those who don't know me, an emergency physician, host of the Talk to Me Doc podcast, and a career strategist for early to mid-career physicians who are dissatisfied with their career. And I have the honor of hosting Heather here, and you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Heather Hammerstedt. I'm emergency medicine as well, and double board certified in lifestyle medicine, and have had the foresight when I was still in medical school to go get a health coaching certificate as an integrative nutrition coach, and bringing it full circle these days, really helping people figure out how their brains and bodies work around food, and run a coaching company and consulting company called Wholist. It's a play off of hospitalist, gastroenterologist, laborist, talking about the whole person and how we can really figure out how our bodies and brains work in terms of sustainable health change. And so I love education, and I love talking about this kind of stuff, especially to docs, because the better we are, the better we can serve our patients, families, and communities. So happy to be here, Andrew. Thank you.
Absolutely. And, I think throughout our medical training, unfortunately, our health and nutrition takes a back seat, exercise as well. But then even, I think myself included throughout residency, I'm like, well, I'll get back into it when I'm done, when life is less hectic. And oftentimes
it turns out it never is.
Right? It's sometimes busier when you're at attending. But so how, for someone who's really out of the loop and just eating terribly and not exercising at all, how do we get back into it? How do we start? I know you talk a lot about mindset around nutrition as well, but what's step one or step zero?
Step one is realizing that we're practicing for progress, not perfection. So it's hard for docs sometimes to realize that everything doesn't have to be perfectly laid out for us, that we can just take messy action sometimes. And when it comes to that, it means that get out of your bed and exercise today, or choose this meal. And it doesn't mean that you have to commit 100% to something. It just means that every choice is another chance. And I think that's important, especially those of us who are, busy doctors with a full practice, or families and, side businesses, or whatever it is that we're doing. It's hard to put yourself first when we're holding that kind of glass full of perfection.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, a lot of us are perfectionists and type A and want everything exactly right, or it doesn't count, right? You had one bad meal and the diet is done, right?
All or nothing cognitive dissonance. We're really good at that as docs, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And, people talk about happiness and burnout, and we talk a lot about career and what we can do in our jobs. And, we don't talk a lot about everything else, right? Because career is one of the really, I think, 4 aspects. It's career, it's health, it's relationships, and then it's hobbies and fun, in my opinion. And health, I think it's better now than it was, but really takes a backseat to all the rest. And sometimes just fixing one aspect of the 4 can really pay dividends to the rest, if you would agree.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most important things that we can do as doctors is to buy good shoes and have your own doctor. I think
which we don't do.
Which we don't do, right? I mean, we tend to treat ourselves too often. I think we really need an impartial person to catch the things that we're not looking for ourselves. And especially, you and I in emergency medicine, my husband always tells me, you're the worst kind of doctor to marry, because I'm like, you're fine, you're not dying, right? But it means that we're missing all those smaller things, that we need to be doing for ourselves and for our family. And so I think that's the first step to kind of self-care. I think also realizing that self-care isn't an indulgence, that fueling yourself and moving yourself and analyzing your own thoughts are essential to not just your own longevity and well-being emotionally and physically, but also your ability to take care of your family and to take care of your patients and take care of your nurses and take care of your staff. All these people that need us all the time. When we show up half empty, we're not serving ourselves or serving them. And so really figuring out, it's not expensive bath products and yoga and spa appointments. It's like taking the opportunity to turn off the TV, to like say no to the second drink or the first drink, right? Saying no to things that you don't want to do when someone wants you to do them if it's not serving you. It's financial independence, right? It's doing work that matters. It's like letting other people take care of themselves so that you can take care of you. It's
Yeah,
so
I
much
love that.
more.
I mean, self-care is not an indulgence is great, and it's not selfish, right? That's the other thing. You're not because taking care of yourself does not detract from your ability to take care of others. It enhances it.
Yeah.
Um, I know I was talking. I used to really enjoy lifting weights. That was one of my things, and I got away from it, of course. And my brother-in-law lives 2 doors down, and we like to lift together, and we haven't in months. And we're like, we finally started up again about a month and a half ago, just twice a week, like 20 minutes, half hour. And it's like I can't find 20 minutes in a day
Right.
to just go down to my basement, not even a
You're
gym.
gonna you're gonna be scrolling for 20 minutes, like
Right. I mean, it's silly when you think about it, but then when you're in the thick of it, you really, oh no, I'm too busy. I don't have 20 minutes. Um, but yeah, so I think so. You said step one was to just start, right? Messy action, like in many things in life. And then we mentioned the cognitive dissonance of perfectionism. What are some other like mental blocks you feel that you've run into with physicians, especially?
I think that we as physicians, we have this tendency to think that like ignoring ourselves is a badge of honor, right? Like
Mm.
I can work for 24 hours. I did a 30-hour shift, or I didn't have to sleep last night, or I didn't nap before my shift, or I don't take breaks to eat. Those kind of things that we just sort of like, at least for me, for so long was like that's just what we do. Like I'm the doctor. Like that's and I think getting over that and realizing the fact that your staff gets lunch breaks means that lunch breaks are important. And I think I figured this out when I was a new mom and I was, pumping all the time, that like I can take a 15-minute break and go pump and take phone calls and finish my charts while I'm doing that because I'm doing it for someone else. But yet I wouldn't take that time to go sit down and drink some water and eat some food for me. So I found that to be a really powerful analogy in realizing how much I was putting everyone else ahead of me and how the badge was not serving me. So I think that's one. I think just in general, when we're talking about nutrition, hi, Dr. Kalsa, nice to see you.
Hey.
I think when it comes to food, I think also that doctors have a habit of eating really fast and of taking whatever's convenient. So how many times, well, we're emergency medicines, we probably don't get to the doctor's lounge that often, but I'm sure at some point in the middle of the night, you've snuck to the doctor's lounge and they have a refrigerator there where there's like a half-eaten sandwich that someone put back into the refrigerator, or like the half-eaten potato chip bag, right? Like that's like the perfect analogy for like, first of all, doctors are very weird, but secondly, like what the choice that they're making to eat really fast and stick something back in that was not serving them. And so I think really important for us to figure out like why we're eating, when we're eating, what we're eating. All three of those things I think are really essential for us to be getting the healthiest bodies and healthiest minds that we can.
That's great. I mean, I think definitely been there with the sandwiches. Fortunately,
Tell me you
um,
don't put half of it back in.
no, no. I was told to finish my plate. Okay, so, oh, hi, Dr. Nelson, welcome. But yeah, I think it's really true, and especially for those of us that work nights, how often is there just a pizza in the staff lounge, right?
Yeah.
And you just run back there and shove a slice in your face and run back out. And unfortunately, I think the eating really fast, I can't stop it in my personal life. Like, you go to a restaurant and then when we used to go to restaurants, I'd be done in a second because I just can't stop. So I think it's all, grabbing a bite here and there. But I mean, honestly, especially in the emergency department, if you taking 10 minutes to eat something healthy and sit down, I think you're going to take care of the next 10 patients way better.
Yeah.
I wish I did it more often, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. I set an alarm for myself,
Hmm.
that even if I don't go and take that break at the alarm, at least the alarm reminded me that I meant to do it. And for me, it's all about being mindful. Like, it's being mindful about the choices, about how I'm fueling and moving myself. It's being mindful about the thoughts that I'm creating about how I want my life to be. And that includes when I'm on shift. So it's figuring out, again, I mentioned the good shoes, right? But like being thoughtful about the shoes that you're wearing and being mindful about how you're transitioning from one room to the other room. It's being mindful about how am I going to take care of myself so I can get through a 12-hour shift. And these days it's even harder because we're wearing masks, right? And so we can't even really drink water while we're on shifts. And so forcing yourself to go and sit down and mindfully eat. So you're talking about eating really fast. Like, I often will bring chopsticks with me
Hmm.
so that I have to eat really slowly. And it feels really painful because you want to like get back out there and see whatever it is. But if you have your phone, they know how to find you. If you have a computer in front of you, you can multitask and do some other things while you're still like kind of taking care of yourself. And like we always say, like, you can't fill someone else's cup if yours is empty, right? If you don't process the emotion of one room before you move to the other, you're either going to burn out because you're not processing your emotion, or you're not going to be able to take care of that second person. It's the same thing if you're the first person, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, that makes complete sense. I think, it's always like, oh, well, what's going to happen? I mean, the nurses know how to find you if there's a problem, right? That
100%.
they will
Yeah.
find you. And another 10-minute wait is not going to change anybody's 4 to 6 hour ER stay, right?
Yeah.
And just from
Yeah.
the
Have you ever
comments, I mean,
mistakenly switched to the nurses like the radio, where they're like, eyes on Dr. Hammerstedt, eyes on Dr. Hammerstedt, eyes on Dr. Hammerstedt. It's like being at home where like, I can't even go to the bathroom without people finding me. The nurses can find you.
they can find you. I mean, I work in a very small hospital now, so they know exactly how to find me and all my hiding spots. But when I was working at bigger hospitals and we had like the Vocera like walkie talkies, I
Yeah,
mean, you go to the bathroom and be like, delete, and then, oh God,
totally.
just 1 second. Some comments here. We got Dr. Kalsa saying her post-call freebie breakfast in residency gifted her 15 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
was a scone. Every time I would work a day shift, I'd eat a scone, and that didn't help.
Yeah. And Dr. Nelson saying more often than not, I tend to fast at work. So that's really great if you're doing that mindfully. So I do that as well. So I teach intermittent fasting to our clients, and it's really great for some people, and other people it's not. It depends on kind of how your brain works around restriction and where you are with your mindset around that. But I often find that fasting at work is a really beneficial thing if you've decided ahead of time that that's part of your plan. But if you're just not eating, that's not the same as fasting. Like,
True.
fasting is the decision of like how you fueled yourself in order to get to a hormonal release between meals, right? Giving yourself a vacation from insulin between meals. And so, so planning for that is great. And it's much easier to fast when you're busy than just sitting around. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I think for those of us who are very susceptible to hanger, fasting is not a good idea. The Snickers bar commercials, just maybe replace that with not a Snickers bar. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really, I want to dig in a little bit to something you said a few minutes ago. You said that you're trying to be more mindful as to what you want your life to be. And so how does that relate to like eating on shift?
Um, I think um, I think that eating is integral into how you are running your life. And I find that if I'm eating whole foods, real food, I always like to say if it was born or if it was grown, you should eat it. Otherwise, you should not. And I am primarily plant-based, but I still do have some animal products. But I think that making that choice in terms of how you're fueling your body, I feel entirely different when I am eating how I've decided to eat. I sleep better. My mood is more steady. I have less of those spikes of emotions. I can exercise better. I'm stronger. All of those things. It also means that I'm more empathic when I'm at work, that my interaction with my staff is more steady. And so I think it's all related. Like if I'm thinking about how I want my life to be, do I want it to be steady? Do I want it to be mindful? Do I want to have chosen the way that I'm allowing my body to feel and for how to rest and my interactions with people? That all starts with food to me. And so to be mindful about my life is the same as being mindful with my food.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's really true. You definitely, when you feel better in one aspect of your life, you feel better in the rest. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, Dr. Nelson's saying that she gains with intermittent fasting at night, especially with cortisol, stress, and lack of sleep. Um, I would imagine that's probably true. That makes
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, our cortisol spikes at different times depending on our circadian rhythm. Our growth hormone also changes depending on our circadian rhythm. So, if you're awake at a time that your body thinks you're not supposed to be awake, those you will get cravings and you will eat more, and your cortisol and your growth hormone will kind of fight with your digestive hormones a bit and your hunger hormones in terms of what it is that you're taking in. And obviously if your cortisol is high, your body thinks that you're in a fight, right? And so it's not going to be burning excess fat if it thinks that you should be running from a bear, right? It's keeping everything close to the heart. So yeah, so those are great points. I think us shift workers struggle with this a little bit. And for me, I'm a nocturnist. I have been for 6 years. And so for me, it's been very careful plotting about how my food and exercise relates to when I'm on a string of shifts or if I'm off. So I generally work 5 or 6 on and then I'm off for 10 to 14. And so I purposefully do that so that I can shift completely back into regular life. And I change my eating schedules accordingly to make sure that I'm shifting in and out of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for those nocturnists and those, for example, hospitalists that do a week of nights at a time, that's helpful. For, people like me that do a one-off here and
I
again, it
know.
is very challenging.
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, I did that for 10 years and I mean, people are always like, how do you just work nights? I'm like, how do you work all of the times? You know what I mean? Like the shifting from a day to an evening to a night, back to a day, one day off, and then a weekend. I mean, it's pretty chaotic. And I think in terms of food and exercise is really hard to figure that out. Unless you do what I do, which is I literally make a calendar that's just for me,
Hmm.
that like it's not the kids, it's not my husband, it's not work, it's not EM work, it's not Wholist work, it's like me. Like and that way, like I can, if I pull up my calendar, I see me. I see when I'm supposed to be planning the food. I see when I'm going to be exercising. I'm saying when I'm taking rest time, so that if someone wants to schedule a call with me, they can't. If someone asks me to do something, there's something on the calendar. So I'm not just seeing work, I'm seeing me. And that's been an essential shift for me to be able to schedule myself into my life, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I think for you guys who are kind of all over the map in terms of your scheduling, that's even more important.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it's I had a client who just he said he had no time to do any of the work that he wanted to work with me about, and that was one thing I told him. I said, just put 20 minutes on a calendar and put it in your calendar, and it's a meeting. It's just
Yeah.
with yourself, and that helped great. I mean, that's one of those things. Sometimes for us busy professionals, we just have to do. So for those of us that have chaotic schedules, would you recommend, like, for example, if I'm going from a day to a night back, then a day off or something, I always wonder about what to do. Like the day, for example, I'm going in at 7 p.m. tonight, let's say, should I eat normally during the day and like not eat at night, or like, is there, I don't know if there's a good answer, but what would you recommend for people like that?
So, I think that it depends on what the whole week looks like. So if primarily during the week, in that kind of 7-day stretch, are you going to be primarily awake during the day or primarily awake at night? And
So
if you're
usually I'll just do like 2 nights and then
yeah,
go back to
and then
normal.
back, yeah.
Yeah.
So I would try to stay on a day eating schedule. If I was only working 1 or 2 nights,
Okay.
I would eat in my 8 hour. Well, I usually eat within an 8 hour window and don't eat in the 16. That's just kind of how I give myself a hormonal break. And give my brain a break from food. And so I would eat my 2 meals in the 8 hours of what seems like daytime. So if you sleep until 4, right, you eat at 4 o'clock when you wake up, and then at like 10 o'clock, you're working all night and you go back to sleep. And that way it's easier to shift that back into daytime when you're coming off of that. You eat at 12 and at 8 or something like that. And the next day it's easier to shift it into a morning time eating schedule. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's actually really helpful. I'm gonna try that next week.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is really good, and I'll try not to avoid the nurse's pizza as much as possible. So that's
Yeah, my rule is that I made years ago is I just don't eat anything anyone else brings into work because it's never good. It's all bullshit, right? It's
yeah,
like
sure.
it's Domino's pizza or it's like candy or someone made a cake, right? It's like that doesn't help you fuel your brain, right? It makes you crash later and it makes you crazy right after and like you don't have kids yet, but like my kids are like they look like a caricature of what all of us feel like when they have sugar, right? They're just like complete Muppet mayhem, right? And like that's the way we all feel when we have that kind of stuff and we crash later and we can't effectively take care of people. So I when I bring food to work, it's like I brought food. And so that is what I promised myself I was going to do. We always make better decisions ahead of time than we do in the moment, right? So planning ahead for what you want to have. And just, if you take the question of, am I going to eat that off the table of am I going to eat that? Am I going to eat every time you walk past it? Am I going to eat that? Am I going to eat that? Am I going to eat that? Right. If you take that out of your brain to just be like, these are the things about your thoughts, right? Like, oh, I don't eat things other people bring to work.
Mm.
It's just,
But yeah,
you
that's
just don't,
great.
you just don't have to think about it, right? You just don't do
Especially
that.
now, I probably shouldn't be eating anything anybody brings to work. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, no, that's actually a really good strategy. I'm going to employ that as well. So we talked a bit about mindset as regards to food and kind of just getting started and some tips and tricks for shift workers. As far as exercise, I think everyone thinks that you need an hour at the gym, or you gotta put aside a significant amount of time to get any meaningful exercise in. And what do you say to that?
So the lifestyle medicine data shows that sitting is associated with 10% of all cause mortality.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
sitting. So if you can just not sit, right? If you can stand with a mobile computer while you're at work, if you can walk while you're dictating, like any of that is better than nothing, right? So the data really shows from the American College of Sports Medicine and the lifestyle medicine colleges, pretty consistent that like you get the best health benefits at 150 minutes per week of moderately vigorous exercise. So 5 days, 30 minutes, or however you want to break it up. More than that, like you get some incremental benefit, but not necessarily. And less than that, again, just a little bit less here all the way. So is it a goal for 150 minutes? Yes. Like that's what the data shows. Anything you can do is better. So people who have like sitting down physician jobs, right? Like getting up once an hour and walking around for 2 minutes makes a huge difference. And so every little bit that you can do, whether like sometimes I give myself a challenge that like between every third patient, I'm going to do like a wall sit, like something like that, like just something to get my body moving while I'm there. And then in terms of like what kind of exercise, it really depends on your goals. So if you're looking for endurance and cardiovascular, benefit, really, you are going to be looking at more cardio respiratory work. So whether that's running or biking or kind of those kind of endurance things, if you're looking for weight loss, it's actually resistance training that is going to be the most beneficial, because you're building muscle that burns energy when you're no longer exercising. Otherwise, if you're doing cardio, you're burning that energy while you're doing it, and then it stops when you're not doing it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
That's very helpful. Okay. So that's so anything, do something, right? Don't sit.
Anything.
That's what I
Yeah.
got. All
Anything.
right.
Yeah.
Great. Um, Heather, could you just give us a little bit of rundown on Wholist? I think it's for those who don't know about your company, it's really interesting, and I think what you've done is really amazing. So, just for the listeners out there, if you could just give us a little rundown on what your company is about and what you stand for.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for that. Yeah, so lifestyle medicine is a specialty within medicine that is helping physicians use the evidence behind food and sleep and exercise and mindfulness for the prevention and reversal of disease. For me, it's been the perfect addition of my 20-year history of this integrative nutrition coaching, and really putting together a team of coaches that work with me around weight science coaching and around mindset around food coaching. So basically is a 12-week university level course on weight science and neuroplasticity. Every day people get learning, because I'm all about education, learning about how their bodies and brains work, and the nuts and bolts of nutrition. And then they have two personal coaches that help them, one on weight and one on mindset, to really integrate that knowledge into their specific life. Because I can give you all the information that you want, but if you don't take a step to figure out how it works into your life sustainably, it's just another diet, right? Like, the point of this is to get out of diet mentality, to help people get to the bodies and brains that they want within the life that they live and the construct of their life, so that they can make sustainable health change, instead of just restricting themselves for a little bit of time, losing weight, and then gaining it all back. So really helping people figure that part out. And it's really fun. At this point, I have 13 coaches and 3 strategy coaches, a couple admin folks, and we love what we do. We're a great family, and take care of each other, and get really excited every time we get to help someone change their life.
That's awesome. Well, the passion definitely rings through. So, I've really learned a lot today, actually. So, I'm going to put this all into work on my next shift. So I
Good.
appreciate you coming on here and talking to my audience, and giving a little bit more about what you do and what you stand for. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
If anybody has any more questions, we'll stay on for a minute or two. Otherwise, you can always reach us in the comments below later when you get out of work and are ready to stop sitting.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll check in and out.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for listening, and till next time. Click the wrong button.
We're still live, it looks like.
Yeah, I clicked the wrong button. Bye again.